So, good morning everyone, and thank you Elena also for your very kind introduction. It's a tremendous privilege and also a great honor to have the address this morning and to talk about shaping the energy transition, because the energy world is changing. It's changing rapidly and it's changing fundamentally. And over the weekend I had the opportunity to meet someone who won a Nobel Prize, and she told me that this whole topic, the energy transition, and especially the consequences, if not done right, are one of the grand challenges of humanity. Yes, while researchers can talk about challenges, and I just heard politicians may have the opportunity to quit, we in business, we find solutions. We find solutions for societal needs to have impact, and this is what I just learned this venue and this organization is all about, and that's why I also wholeheartedly embrace it. And we find also solution, and at Siemens we have the ambition to be at the forefront when it comes to the core of societal needs, and therefore the ambition is to shape the energy transition. Elena has just said it, but let me also reiterate, because we can only echo that and applaud to what Copenhagen is doing, and therefore you chose the venue quite smartly, because Copenhagen wants to be a pioneer, also going forward among so many cities to be carbon neutral and to be a pioneer, and this will have also rippling effects in terms of the attractivity of the city going forward. And therefore we all look forward as to how this is going to develop. But it's also kind of like an excellence cluster for the renewable energy business, which I'll come to in a minute. Already alluded to, I also had my fair share right at the heart of what used to be known a utility at E.ON. I was there for 2 years and was responsible also splitting the company. So when I got there, it was still this integrated utility with an integrated business model, from plant to plug, all the way from generation. Transmission was already out, but then you have distribution and then what they call the customer business. But then we decided to split the company because of that energy transition, because we believe there are two energy worlds, and for quite a while these two energy worlds will also coexist next to one another. There will be the new energy world, which will be digital, which will be decentral, where the customer is very much at the core and plays a very, very active role. And believe me, it's now called the customer, while in the old days it was called grid parity. And then there's the conventional world, which still will be in existence for quite a while and will be needed, because as much as I also wish that the transition at some point in time would be over, we still will be in the transition for quite a while. And today within Siemens I have the honor and pleasure also to be responsible for our Siemens Gamesa renewable energy business, which is in many, many ways a very fascinating business, because the entire wind industry is a very, very important juncture point. It is, if you think about it, a very young industry, only in existence for, on a meaningful scale for roughly 1.5 decades. And the very point where we are currently is that it's getting very hot and dynamic, because that industry has proven itself, has validated itself, and what we see today in the marketplace is almost a Darwinistic kind of competition, and I'll come to that in a minute or in some slides later, how we can make that better. This would be my pledge also to regulators. By the same token, it is growing and it will grow. It is growing by 6 to 8% going forward in the next couple of years. Obviously 6 to 8% in megawatt, not really in money. This tells you how much the prices are declining. They have come down in the last couple of years, by roughly 30%, which made this industry very competitive, and they will go down going forward at a much more accelerated pace. And if you think about it, and here in Denmark, it actually started from a boutique, at the other side of the ocean you would call it a garage, from a boutique-size business and business ideas, and we heard about so many ideas a couple of minutes ago, to now a very meaningful industrial business, and with Siemens merging with Gamesa and having Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy, it's actually a global player which is going to take that to the next level. We call it scale to win. And if I think about Denmark, at that time I was also at Siemens in the strategy department. In 2004, we acquired a small company here in Denmark. As I said, others might call it a garage. It had 700 employees and 300 million of revenues. Today, Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy has 10 billion in revenues, has 25,000 employees, and has a record backlog of more than 22 billion, and is a very relevant player in the industry, actually going way beyond the numbers, doing good to society, daily innovating for better outcomes, to increase yields and to bring down the cost per megawatt hour. And we have heard it. This is important, to bring down the cost per megawatt hour, because last week we had been reminded by the report, which already went viral in the social media, that the planet more or less has fever. The planet has fever, and it's not enough to just step up actions. We need to fundamentally change a few things, only to get to this number, 1.5 degrees Celsius, which already needs a lot of efforts, and we need to step up, and renewables will play a major role, because until 2015, 13,000 gigawatt will come online to serve also a growing population. By 2015, there will be almost 10 billion people on the planet. The need for energy is there, and therefore we have to ask ourselves, how can we use our limited natural resources to provide those almost 10 billion people with energy which is economically feasible, which is reliable, but by the same token has to combat climate change. But let me step back and also take a more systemic view on the whole energy system. And there are, in our core belief, 4 Ds, as we call them, which are shaping the energy system. They are shaping it fundamentally, and they are also intertwined. It's decarbonization, decentralization, digitalization, and demand growth. They're all intertwined and also force us, and we better do it, to collaborate with one another, which I mean is regulators, politicians on the one side, the private sectors, companies, big companies, small companies, to be big companies going forward, and obviously consumers, which we all know are not consumers anymore because they're also prosumers. But let me also step back. If we talk about the energy system, yes, regulators have supported new innovative technologies like renewable energies on solar and on wind, so that we could grow the way we grew in the last couple of years. This was good. But the industry, by the same token, with the help of innovation, has shown that it can bring down costs. It can bring down the LCOE. So now going forward, if we talk about market design, I think we also have to be reasonable to do that, what in German we call Augenmaß. Do it reasonably. Don't go from 100 to 0 and pull the plug when I talk about, the feed-in models for renewable energy projects. And yes, going forward, we need investments into the grid. We need more incentives also for younger companies, but also for big companies on storage. But I also do believe that since the transition will go on for quite a while, that we need backup capacity and peaker, so there will be conventional energy, preferably, obviously, gas, which can do and help and bridge on the transition. Now let's go through the Ds one another and talk about decarbonization. First, this is a very, very, very huge societal need. It is beyond numbers, it is beyond technology, because this is about thinking about the next generation. What kind of planet do we want to leave for our kids, for our grandkids? And I think the motto the United Nations have chosen, "My planet, my future," is exactly the right one. And so irrespective of maybe some also current political stances also in very meaningful countries, the societal need and also private sector companies will drive the decarbonization, and it will change from today 2/3 fossil fuel to, well, some say 2050 it will be 2/3 renewable. And I guess we're not talking anymore if it's going to happen, we're just talking when it's going to happen. But I think it's equally important, especially for those who have a voice, like our company has, to also talk about how we're going to do it. And I'm going back to that Augenmaß kind of thing, do it reasonable. If you want to change to a more market-oriented design, which I fully embrace, then do it at reasonable speed and pace. Other than that, it will hamper innovation and it will be fought on the back of employees. If, you know, feed-in tariffs go from 200 euros per megawatt hour on, let's say, the accelerated model we had in Germany, suddenly going to auctions, and sometimes you see almost €0 per megawatt hour. If you do that, then the system can obviously not cope with that, and as I said, innovation will be left behind. This is not what we want. We need that innovation speed, and this is very important because the industry, all of us have proven that we can do it. Look at what we've done in solar, in wind. Prices have come down by 84% in solar, have been on PV, have been coming down on wind turbines, and they are going to go down further. This is what I meant. We are currently having this almost Darwinistic competition because scale matters. Scale matters if you want to win that one. We need to further industrialize our businesses. Also look at how other industries have been doing that. For example, the automotive industry, if you think about platforms within one company, on onshore, offshore, or even maybe at some point industry standards. We need scale in geographic reach when more countries also incentivize their energy system to go more into renewables, and that is going to drive the LCOEs down. Obviously, storage will play a very, very crucial role. You can see here what battery prices have been doing. And also here, it is more about how can we build the ecosystem for storage technologies for them to prosper. Obviously, today, yes, batteries are playing a major, major role. We'll see how it develops going forward when we talk about industry scale. And therefore, I do think that for the time being, for the next couple of years, again, conventional will also be there, especially when you think about industrial application for a plant, for an energy-intensive plant, which is industrial size. There, I think we still need to do some work when we talk about renewables in conjunction with storage, but it's going to get there. I'm pretty convinced of this one. This one I like very much. If you look at the picture, you know, the energy world has been decentral. So we move from decarbonization, what we have done in the industry, to decentral. It has been decentral in the past. Then if you look at it, like in many industries, things grew big. Industrialization was huge. And this was the time where those integrated models from plant to plug came into existence. And nowadays, it's going into decentral again because technology drives that. In Germany, for example, we had a period in the 1990s where there were 1,000 power plants, central station power plants, fossil power plants. Today, we have, 1.5 years ago, we have 1.6 million energy producers in Germany. So the consumer gets a producer, it's all going to get customer-centric, no grid parity anymore. And also utilities like E.ON did know that the old business model from plant to block is not in existence anymore. In the past, sometimes you had the feeling that utilities may have thought they almost had a constitutional right to exist with that integrated monolithic model, but now know that this model is getting interdissected, it's going to be chunked into pieces, and those pieces on grid, on customers, i.e. customer solution, households, B2B, B2B big, B2B small, B2M, B2 municipalities, is having its own dynamics with its own business model when you think about electromobility, but also when you think about political trends, when we talk about liberalization, and as I said, the consumer is playing an ever-increasing role. The biggest driver, in our view, next to that societal driver, is going to be digitalization. Because the more we get decentral, the more we have decentralized energy-producing, energy-generating systems, which are mostly renewable, the more we need to connect them and the more intelligence you need in the system. And this chart depicts more how you can do it in a more system holistic point of view and way, because Siemens believes in the digital twin and also in connecting the real physical world with the digital world. Because this is what it's all about. Today, the physical world has a lot of sensors, and those sensors are being developed further and getting more sensitive with different technologies. So the assets, the physical world, are equipped with sensors. On top comes ubiquitous connectivity, so everything is connected, and then with the help of cloud computing, you can bring it all to the cloud onto an operating system which we call MindSphere. And with MindSphere, in the digital world, you're able to connect the physical assets and to automate them, to control them, to manage them, and to steer them. And within MindSphere, it's also an ecosystem. It's actually the perfect innings for all of the young startups here to hook into an ecosystem of MindSphere, to come up with your own application on how to manage a very, very specific asset. But also on the physical layer, on the real asset, it is an end-to-end connectivity, because what you see on the bottom right, we talk about edge devices. Edge devices means there is some intelligence in the hardware, because next to sensors, to ubiquitous connectivity, we are increasing in processing power. So the devices as such, the asset as such, is also getting more and more intelligent, where a lot of machine learning capabilities can be embedded. So we have both, on the one hand, things in the cloud with an operating system in the middle. By the same token, the devices, the hardware, gets more intelligent by the day. And then we have real examples. This was more the system point of view. We can do it, and we do it already with Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energies. We have 86 gigawatt of installed base. This creates a huge data lake which can be used to increase the outcome of our machines, to increase the wind yields, to learn from patterns, to apply machine learning capabilities, to have predictive models on maintenance where it can again drive down the costs, because as you remember, we still have to drive down the LCOEs, and predictive modeling, preventive maintenance based on real-time data, using drones also on maintenance is a real example which we have, which we apply, which we believe is a competitive advantage, combined with the MindSphere platform, which gives you the more system-oriented approach. And you see business models changing. People run virtual power plants. There is peer-to-peer connection in exchanging energy, and this is what it's all about. If you think about the B2C arena, if you think about an Uber, if you think about an Airbnb, their business model on the digital side was all about underutilized assets. So wherever there are underutilized assets, and we have some, then digitalization will play a key role, and I think out of the 4Ds, this will be one of the strongest drivers. And then we have demand growth. Demand growth because we will have population growth, and there will be need for energy, which some people say may not go in lockstep with GDP. This is the whole decoupling theory, which might be true, but I believe directionally it's right. There will be a rise in demand, and there will be electrification. So you see the number here, 11.5 trillion of investments, huge, huge numbers. Let's chunk that down. It's roughly 250 billion per annum. Huge market for everyone, also for you here, the new ideas, the one who already matured a little bit. So big, big market, and the chunk of that market is going to be taken by renewable energy, and I believe the biggest loser going forward in that transition, loser if I may say so, is going to be coal, and as I said, if the conventional world is going to have a part, preferably it will be gas. But it's going to grow. It's going to grow because next to those 4Ds, we have electrification. One more. There should be a picture. If you think about that one, that is a picture from 1957. They already had the vision at that point in time. Maybe they didn't have a platform like this one, but the technology, I think, was also not mature enough. But they already had the vision. It was all about e-mobility, and there you see what electrification will do, what kind of role it will play. This is what we call sector coupling, and yes, there is a tremendous energy consumption, and the biggest consumers obviously are heating and transportation, but yet still a small part when it comes to electrification, and this will rise. This will rise with technology progressing. This will rise if and when the regulatory framework is also going in lockstep, and this will rise if we make more progress also on storage. So electrical energy will be the new oil, if you so wish, and change fundamentally the landscape. And here you see the applications we have with even increasing electrical energy into other industries, into other sectors, and that's why I am convinced that there will be demand growth. This is what we call sector coupling on transportation, be it on rail transportation, where we need to further electrify, and especially if you think around the globe, obviously electromobility, a very, very hot topic, I guess, also here, and then obviously for buildings, which is clear. But for all of that, for sector coupling, you need the infrastructure, and you need the infrastructure to be capable of managing all those decentral power generators, prosumers, assets, sectors which are sucking and consuming the energy, and their digitalization will play a key role. So we need to build out the infrastructure and the digital capabilities going forward in order to make that a success. And with that one, I'm coming almost to the end, where I gave you a little bit a glimpse on how we see the energy world is going to develop and what is shaping the energy world, and how we believe we can play a very, very active role, obviously all together in an ecosystem. And I think the industry has proven, born in Denmark, now global, has proven that it can bring down the LCOEs. It will prove that it's gonna further bring down the LCOEs. We are investing into new storage facilities, storage technologies, and obviously also energy security, a topic I've not touched on, but it will be a very, very big topic, cybersecurity. We're also doing many things, also in digitalization, secure platforms, to do our homework on that one. But we also need from the regulator that you have this German Augenmaß, be reasonable when you turn into the market-oriented design, which I fully embrace, committed to renewable energy increase also the incentive when it comes to new technologies, for example, storage, and also with the society, not only with us as corporate citizens, companies, we are committed, I guess, as the civil society, as people, we are committed, but also the government, the regulators need to equally be fully committed to meet their CO2 carbon neutral goals and to really drive the entire system. And with that, I thank you very much.